I arrived at the Coldwater Aquarium just after sunset on a Tuesday in October. The facility sat at 7,200 feet, carved into the south face of Mount Jessup, where a natural spring fed a network of tanks that had operated since 1987. The access road switched back 11 times through Douglas fir and lodgepole pine. My headlights caught the reflective markers every 30 yards until the trees opened onto a gravel lot with space for 6 vehicles. The main building was concrete and riverstone with narrow windows set high. A steel door marked "Staff" faced the lot. I had driven 9 hours for this job. I needed the money. My brother's medical bills had accumulated to $41,000, and this position paid $2,800 per month plus housing. The ad had specified overnight custodial and monitoring work. It had not mentioned rules. A woman in a gray fleece jacket waited under the entrance light. She was maybe 60, with close-cropped silver hair and a radio clipped to her belt. She held a clipboard. "You're the new night keeper," she said. Not a question. "Yes, I'm supposed to start tonight." She looked at my car, then at me. "Did you bring everything on the list?" I nodded. 2 changes of clothes, toiletries, flashlight, personal medications. No alcohol, no firearms. "Good. I'm Bridget, day supervisor. I do morning inventory and coordinate with the board. You'll mostly work with dispatch and the weekend relief." She turned toward the door. "We have 43 minutes before full dark. I'll show you the layout." She unlocked the door using a key from a ring that held 12 others. The interior smelled like wet stone and ozone. We entered a corridor with concrete floors painted seafoam green. Overhead lights flickered on motion sensors. Bridget moved quickly. "Main gallery is through there," she said, pointing left. 22 display tanks, 12,000 gallons total. The spring feeds from the north side. Temperature stays at 41 degrees year-round. Equipment room is adjacent. You'll check pressure gauges and filtration logs every 2 hours. We passed a door marked private. She did not slow. "Break room, office, storage, and your quarters are in the east wing. Radio chargers are in the break room. Channel 6 only. Channel 4 is for emergencies, but you won't use it unless I tell you to." She stopped at another steel door. "This is the service level, pump room, backup generators, old storage. You won't need to go down there during your shift. Won't need to or shouldn't." She looked at me. Both. We climbed a short staircase to a hallway lined with framed photographs of the aquarium's construction. Bridget stopped at a door labeled "Night Keeper." She handed me a single key on a yellow plastic tag. "Your room, bed, desk, bathroom, door locks from the inside. There's a kettle and a microwave in the break room if you get hungry." She checked her watch. 31 minutes to full dark. "Come to the office. I'll give you the operations manual and the list." My quarters were small but clean. A twin bed with gray blankets, a wooden desk, a lamp, a chair. The bathroom had a shower with a clear curtain and a narrow window set 7 feet up. I dropped my duffel on the bed and returned to the corridor. The office was 2 doors down. Bridget sat at a metal desk sorting papers. A whiteboard on the wall listed supply counts: salt, 73 pounds, test kits, 4, backup batteries, 18. A second radio sat charging on a shelf. She handed me a binder with a blue cover. "Standard operations, tank monitoring, equipment checks, daily logs. Read it tonight. You'll do a walkthrough every 2 hours starting at 10. Mark times and observations on the sheet inside." She pulled a laminated card from a drawer. "This is the list. You follow these rules exactly. No exceptions. No improvisation. If something happens that isn't covered, you radio me on Channel 6 and wait for instructions." The card was 8 inches by 5 inches, printed in black text, 14 numbered items. "Read it now," she said. I read. "Our Coldwater Aquarium. Night Keeper Rules. 1. Lock the main entrance door at 2100 hours, 9 p.m. Verify all 3 deadbolts. Do not open it again until 0600 hours, 6 a.m., unless instructed by day supervisor via radio. 2. Conduct visual checks of the main gallery every 2 hours, 2200, 0000, 0200, 0400. Walk the perimeter clockwise. Do not linger at any single tank longer than 60 seconds. 3. Between 0100 and 0130 hours, the north observation window will show condensation. Wipe it with the cloth kept in the cabinet below. Do not look through the window while wiping. Face the interior of the room. 4. If you hear tapping on glass during your rounds, identify which tank. Check the species log. If the listed species does not possess appendages capable of tapping, do not approach closer than 10 feet. Continue your round. 5. Radio dispatch at 2300 hours and 0300 hours. State: Nightkeeper, cold water, all clear. Wait for confirmation. If dispatch does not confirm within 90 seconds, repeat once. If no confirmation after second attempt, proceed to break room and wait. 6. The specimen in tank 17 is a single bull trout, 14 inches, tag number 88. If you observe 2 fish in tank 17, turn off the gallery lights using the panel by the entrance. Wait 5 minutes. Turn lights back on. If 2 fish remain, do not re-enter the gallery until 0600 hours. 7. Do not enter the service level between 2100 hours and 0600 hours. 8. If the equipment room door is open when you did not open it, close it. Do not enter. Note the time in your log. 9. Water temperature in all tanks must remain between 40 and 42 degrees Fahrenheit. If any gauge reads outside this range, adjust using the panel in the equipment room. If adjustment does not correct the reading within 15 minutes, radio day supervisor immediately. 10. You may hear footsteps in the corridor outside your quarters. They will circle twice. Do not open your door. Do not look through the peephole. Wait until the footsteps stop. Resume normal activity. 11. The break room microwave will sometimes run on its own. This is normal. Do not open it while it is running. When it stops, wait 30 seconds before opening. 12. If you see a person in the main gallery during your rounds, ask, "Do you need directions?" If they respond with anything other than, "No, I'm just looking," turn around and return to your quarters. Lock your door. Radio day supervisor on channel 6. 13. The old storage area on the service level contains 16 plastic bins labeled A through P. These must remain sealed. If you have reason to enter old storage, do not open any bin. If a bin is open, do not look inside. Exit and radio day supervisor immediately. 14. At 0530 hours, conduct a final check of all exterior doors, main entrance, equipment room service exit, north emergency exit. Each should be locked. If any door is unlocked, lock it. Do not open it to check outside. I looked up. These are very specific. Yes. What happens if I don't follow them? Bridget folded her hands on the desk. People get hurt. People go missing. Equipment fails in ways that don't make sense. You follow the list. You'll be fine. You don't. You won't last a week. She stood. It's almost full dark. I'm leaving. Lock the main entrance behind me. Start your first round at 2200 hours. Questions? Why does tank 17 sometimes have 2 fish? I don't know. It just does. Follow rule 6. She picked up her jacket. One more thing. Sometimes this place feels wrong, like you're being watched, or like the walls are closer than they should be. That feeling is accurate. Don't ignore it. Don't rationalize it away. Just follow the list. She walked to the door. Good luck. I followed her down the corridor to the main entrance. She stepped outside. The night air was cold and smelled like pine resin. I watched her walk to a white truck and drive away, her taillights disappearing around the first switchback. I locked the door. 3 deadbolts, heavy steel. I checked each one twice. The aquarium was silent except for the hum of filtration systems and the faint sound of moving water. I had 2 hours before my first round. I returned to my quarters and read the operations manual. It was straightforward. Tank temperatures, pressure readings, filter cleaning schedules, emergency contact numbers. Nothing in it explained the rules. At 2200 hours exactly, I clipped the radio to my belt, took the flashlight from my desk, and walked to the main gallery. The gallery was a long room with vaulted ceilings and tanks set into both walls. Each tank was lit from within, casting blue and green light across the floor. I moved clockwise as instructed. Tank 1 held lake trout. Tank 2, Sculpin. Tank 3, a cluster of crayfish on a bed of smooth stones. I checked my watch at each station. 50 seconds, 45 seconds, 60 seconds. I did not linger. Tank 17 was halfway down the left wall. I approached carefully. One bull trout, 14 inches, grayish-brown with pale spots. It hung motionless in the current from the filtration intake. Tag number 88 visible on its dorsal fin. I counted to 60 and moved on. The north observation window was a wide pane of glass, looking out toward the mountain slope. Condensation had not yet formed. I noted the cabinet below, a folded cloth inside, as described. I completed the circuit in 18 minutes. All tanks appeared normal. I returned to my quarters and wrote in the log, 2200 hours, main gallery check, all clear. At 2300 hours, I radioed dispatch. Nightkeeper Coldwater, all clear. A man's voice responded after 10 seconds. Dispatch confirms. Channel 6 only unless emergency. Understood. I made tea in the break room. The microwave was off. The room had a small table, 2 chairs, a refrigerator stocked with water bottles and prepackaged sandwiches. A calendar on the wall showed October with no annotations. I drank the tea slowly. The building settled around me. Pipes ticked. Somewhere a valve opened and closed. At midnight I did my second round. Tank 17 still held 1 fish. The north window had developed condensation as predicted. I retrieved the cloth from the cabinet and wiped the glass, facing inward as instructed. The cloth was damp and cold. I did not look outside. I replaced the cloth and continued. At 0100 hours, I was back in my quarters when I heard the footsteps. They came from the corridor outside my door. Slow, even pacing, boots on concrete. The steps moved from left to right, circling. I counted. 24 steps. Pause. Then the circuit again. 24 steps. Pause. Silence. I waited 5 minutes. No further sound. I unlocked my door and checked the corridor. Empty. The motion sensor lights were off. I closed the door and locked it. At 0200 hours, I made my third round. The gallery was unchanged. Tank 17, 1 fish. I adjusted my route to complete the circuit in 16 minutes. At 0300 hours, I radioed dispatch. Same confirmation. Channel 6 only. At 0400 hours, I made my 4th round. As I passed Tank 9, which held a school of juvenile cutthroat trout, I heard a sound, a light tapping on glass. I stopped. The sound came from Tank 12. I walked over. Tank 12 housed 3 signal crayfish. The species log on the placard read, Pachyphastacus leniusculus, claws capable of moderate grip strength. I watched. 1 crayfish was pressed against the front glass. Its right claw opened and closed, striking the pane. Tap, tap, tap. The log said, crayfish had claws. Rule 4 allowed approach. I moved closer, checking the other 2 crayfish. They were motionless on the gravel. The tapping continued. I watched for 30 seconds. The crayfish was agitated, but nothing about it seemed impossible. I continued my round. At 0530, I checked the exterior doors. Main entrance, locked, 3 deadbolts, secure. Equipment room service exit, locked. North emergency exit, locked. I noted each in my log. At 0600 hours, I unlocked the main entrance. Dawn was breaking over the ridge to the east. The sky was pale orange. I stood in the doorway breathing cold air. Bridget arrived at 0645. She reviewed my log at the office desk. Footsteps at 0100? She asked. Yes, 2 circuits. I didn't open the door. She nodded. Good. Crayfish in Tank 12? Tapping. It had claws, so I approached. It stopped after a minute. That's fine. Rule 4 is about species that shouldn't be able to tap. Crayfish can. She closed the log. You did well. Get some sleep. You're on again tonight. I slept until 1400 hours. When I woke, I made a sandwich in the break room and reviewed the rules again. The laminated card was exact in its language. Between 0100 and 0130, do not linger longer than 60 seconds. If they respond with anything other than, the precision felt necessary, like the rules had been written through trial and error. That night followed the same pattern. Lock the door at 2100, rounds at 2200, midnight, 0200, 0400, radio dispatch at 2300 and 0300. The north window condensed. I wiped it without looking outside. Tank 17 had one fish. The footsteps circled twice at 0115. On my third night, something changed. At 2200 hours, I entered the main gallery for my first round. I moved clockwise, checking each tank. When I reached tank 17, I stopped. 2 fish. Both were bull trout. Both were 14 inches. Both had pale spots. Both had tags on their dorsal fins, 88 and 88, identical. I stepped back. Rule 6 was explicit. Turn off the gallery lights, wait 5 minutes, turn lights back on. I walked to the entrance panel and flipped the switches. The tanks went dark except for the faint glow of emergency exit signs. I set a timer on my watch and waited in the doorway. The darkness was total. I could hear the water filtration but could not see the tanks. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. 5 minutes. I turned the lights back on. Tank 17 held one fish, tag number 88. It drifted in the current as if nothing had happened. I completed the rest of the round without incident. Back in my quarters, I logged the event. 2200 hours, tank 17, rule 6 applied, resolved. At midnight, I did my second round. Tank 17 still had one fish. At 0100, I heard the footsteps. At 0200, I made my third round. At 0300, I radioed dispatch. At 0400, I entered the gallery and heard tapping. I stopped. The sound was coming from tank 7. I checked the placard. Lake chub, Quesius plumbeus, no appendages capable of tapping. The fish were small, silver with rounded fins. I watched from 15 feet away. The tapping continued, a steady rhythm against the front glass. I did not approach closer than 10 feet. I continued my round. The tapping stopped when I reached tank 9. The rest of the night was quiet. At dawn, I reported to Bridget. Tank 17 had 2 fish, I said. I followed rule 6. And it worked? Yes, 1 fish when I turned the lights back on. She made a note. Tank 7 tapping? Yes, lake chub. I stayed back. Good. She looked at me. You're doing better than the last keeper. He ignored the tapping. He got close to tank 7. She paused. He's not working here anymore. What happened to him? He requested a transfer, wouldn't say why. Just put in his notice and left the same day. She closed the log. You're learning. Keep it up. I worked 6 nights in a row. The patterns became familiar. Tank 17 showed 2 fish every 3rd or 4th night. The tapping in tank 7 occurred irregularly, maybe once per week. The footsteps came between 0100 and 0130, always 2 circuits, always 24 steps per circuit. The microwave in the break room ran on its own twice during that week. Both times I waited 30 seconds after it stopped before opening it. Both times it was empty. On my 7th night, Bridget handed me a second laminated card. Amendments, she said. We update the rules when something new happens. Read these carefully. They override the original list where noted. The amendments card was the same size, printed in red text. 8 items. Cold water aquarium, amended rules A1. Original Rule 3 is amended. Between 0100 and 0130 hours, wipe the north observation window as instructed. If you see a figure outside the window while wiping, continue wiping. Do not stop. Do not make eye contact. Complete the task and leave the gallery immediately. A2. If tank 17 shows 2 fish and the lights off procedure does not resolve it after 2 attempts, Do not enter the gallery again until day supervisor arrives. Wait in your quarters. A3. Original Rule 10 is amended. If footsteps circle more than twice, count the total circuits. If the count reaches 4, move to the break room. If it reaches 6, move to the equipment room. Lock yourself inside and radio day supervisor on channel 4. A4. The equipment room contains a red toolbox on the second shelf. Do not open it. If the toolbox is on the floor, return it to the second shelf without opening it. If it is already open, leave the room immediately and radio day supervisor. A5. Water temperature readings that fluctuate more than 3 degrees in less than 10 minutes indicate a system fault. Do not attempt manual adjustment. Seal the equipment room door with the magnetic strip kept in the office cabinet. Radio day supervisor on channel 4. A6. If you encounter a person in the main gallery and they respond, "No, I'm just looking," you may continue your round. If they respond with anything else, follow Original Rule 12. If they do not respond at all within 5 seconds, turn off your flashlight, count to 20. Turn your flashlight back on. If they are still present, exit the gallery and lock the door from the outside. Radio day supervisor on channel 4. A7. Do not use the bathroom in your quarters between 0200 and 0300 hours. If you must use a bathroom during this window, use the break room facility. A8. If the main entrance door is found unlocked during your 0530 check, do not lock it, do not touch it. Return to your quarters immediately and wait for day supervisor. Radio on channel 6 to report, but do not leave your quarters under any circumstances. I read the amendments twice. How often do these get updated? When needed. The last update was 4 months ago. Rule A7 was added after the previous keeper reported hearing something in the bathroom pipes during that hour. What did he hear? Breathing, Bridget said. Wet breathing, like someone underwater. He used the bathroom anyway. When he came out, the shower was running. He hadn't turned it on. She handed me the radio. Follow the amendments. They're not suggestions. That night, I followed the new rules precisely. At 01:15, I wiped the north window facing inward. I saw nothing in my peripheral vision. At 02:30, I needed to use the bathroom. I went to the break room instead. At 0400 hours, entered the gallery for my final round. As I passed tank 3, I heard a voice. Excuse me. I turned. A man stood near tank 11. He wore a brown jacket and jeans. His face was shadowed. I could not see his features clearly in the blue light from the tanks. Do you need directions? I asked. My voice was steady. The man tilted his head. Directions? No, I'm waiting. Not, no, I'm just looking. I turned around and walked back toward the entrance. I did not run. I moved at a normal pace. Behind me, I heard nothing. No footsteps, no movement. I exited the gallery and locked the door from the outside using the deadbolt that could be engaged from the corridor. I radioed Bridget on channel 4. Day supervisor, this is night keeper. Rule 12 situation, locked out of gallery, waiting in quarters. Her voice came back after 20 seconds. Understood. Do not re-enter the gallery. I'll be there at 0600. I waited in my room. At 0530, I did not check the exterior doors because I could not access the north emergency exit without passing through the gallery. At 0600, Bridget arrived. She went directly to the gallery and unlocked the door. I followed her inside. The gallery was empty. All tanks appeared normal.
Tank 17 had one fish. Bridget walked the perimeter slowly, checking each station. She crouched near Tank 11 and examined the floor. She stood and looked at me. "You did exactly right," she said. "How many seconds before he answered?" "Maybe 3. And he said he was waiting?" "Yes," she nodded. "We've had that figure before, last year twice. Both times during the 0400 round, the night keeper followed protocol both times, no incidents." She walked to the entrance. "You're clear to resume normal rounds tonight. If he appears again, same procedure." "What is he waiting for?" "I don't know. And you don't need to know. You just need to follow the list." I worked another week without major incident. Tank 17 showed 2 fish once. The lights-off procedure worked on the first attempt. The footsteps circled twice on 4 nights, 3 times on 1 night. On the night they circled 3 times, I moved to the break room as instructed and waited. After 10 minutes, the sound stopped. I returned to my quarters. The tapping in Tank 7 occurred twice more. Both times I stayed back. On my 15th night, I met the weekend relief keeper. His name was Gary. He was younger than me, maybe 25, with a nervous energy that showed in the way he checked and rechecked his radio and flashlight. "You're the one who lasted 2 weeks, he said. "That's good. The last guy quit after 9 days. Bridget said he transferred." "Same thing." Gary sat at the break room table. "You see the figure yet? The one who says he's waiting?" "Once. I've seen him 3 times, always near Tank 11, always the same jacket. I don't think he's human." "What do you think he is?" Gary shrugged. "Don't know, don't care, I just follow the rules, that's the only thing that matters here." He stood. "I'm on tonight and tomorrow, you're back Monday. Don't overthink it, the list works." I took 2 days off. I drove down the mountain to the nearest town 40 minutes away and bought supplies. I called my brother. He was recovering slowly. The bills were being paid. I did not tell him about the aquarium rules. I did not tell him about the figure or the footsteps or the tapping. There was no way to explain it without sounding irrational. When I returned Monday night, Bridget met me in the office. She looked tired. "Gary had an incident," she said. "He's fine, but we need to add another amendment." "What happened?" "He used the bathroom in his quarters at 0245, Rule A7 violation. When he came out, the shower curtain was closed. He opened it. There was something in the tub." She rubbed her eyes. "He didn't describe it. He just locked himself in his room and radioed me on Channel 4. When I got here at dawn, the shower was empty, but the drain was clogged with something that looked like algae. It smelled like sulfur." She handed me a new amendment card, one item printed in red. A9. If you violate Rule A7 and use the bathroom in your quarters between 0200 and 0300 hours, do not open the shower curtain if it is closed. Exit the bathroom immediately. Seal the bathroom door with duct tape, edges only. Radio Day Supervisor on Channel 4. Do not re-enter your quarters until Day Supervisor arrives and clears the space. "Gary's taken a week off," Bridget said. "You're on every night until he comes back. Can you handle that?" "Yes." "Good. We're also getting a new relief keeper starting next month. I'll train them during days before they take a night shift. You'll meet them eventually." She handed me the radio. "Same rules, same protocols. Don't get comfortable just because you've been here a few weeks. This place changes." That night I was especially careful. I avoided my bathroom from 0200 to 0300, using the break room facility instead. At 0400 I entered the gallery and heard the tapping from tank 7. I stayed 15 feet back and continued my round. At 0530 I checked the exterior doors, all locked. Over the next 2 weeks I began to notice patterns within the patterns. Tank 17 showed 2 fish most often on nights when the footsteps circled 3 times. The tapping in Tank 7 preceded temperature fluctuations in adjacent tanks by approximately 30 minutes. The microwave in the break room ran on its own only on nights when I completed my rounds in under 17 minutes. I started keeping a separate log in a notebook, tracking correlations. I did not share this with Bridget. I simply wanted to understand the system. On my 29th night, I had my first equipment failure. At midnight, I entered the equipment room to check the pressure gauges. The needle on gauge 3, which monitored tank cluster B, was in the red zone. I checked the temperature reading, 39 degrees, below the acceptable range of 40 to 42. I used the manual adjustment panel to increase the heater output. I waited 15 minutes. The gauge needle did not move. The temperature dropped to 38 degrees. I checked the rest of the gauges. Gauge 5, tank cluster C, was also dropping. 39 degrees, then 38. The needles moved in sync, 1 degree every 3 minutes. I radioed Bridget on channel 4. Day supervisor, equipment failure, gauges 3 and 5, temperature dropping below range, manual adjustment not working. Her response came immediately. Get the magnetic strip from the office cabinet, seal the equipment room door, do not re-enter, I'll be there in 30 minutes. I retrieved the magnetic strip, a flexible black line with adhesive backing, and applied it around the equipment room door frame. The seal was complete. I waited in the office. Bridget arrived at 0042. She went directly to the equipment room and examined the seal. She did not remove it. She pulled out a thermal reader from her jacket and aimed it at the door. She watched the display for 60 seconds. Temperature inside is dropping, she said. 41 degrees, 40, 39. Consistent rate. She lowered the device. This happened once before, 2 years ago. We had to shut down tank clusters B and C for a week. Lost 6 fish. She looked at me. You sealed it in time. It won't spread beyond the equipment room now. We'll fix it during daylight. What causes it? We don't know. Something about the spring water. Sometimes it pulls cold from deeper sources. Sometimes it pulls other things. She walked to the office. You're done for tonight. Gary's coming in tomorrow. I'll brief him. You take the next 2 nights off. When you come back, the equipment room will be cleared. I slept poorly that day. When I woke in the afternoon, I walked the perimeter of the aquarium building. The structure was solid, built into the mountainside with a view of the valley below. The spring outlet was visible on the north side, a concrete channel that fed into the building through a graded intake. The water was clear and fast-moving. I looked up at the north observation window from outside. From this angle, it was just glass reflecting the trees and sky. I tried to see inside, but the interior lights were off during the day. I saw only my own reflection. I spent my 2 days off in town again. I bought a better flashlight and extra batteries. I called my brother again. The bills were still being paid. He asked if the job was working out. I told him it was quiet and paid well. Both were true. When I returned on Thursday, Bridget was waiting with another amendment. The equipment room incident triggered a new protocol, she said. This one's mandatory for all night keepers going forward. The amendment card was longer this time. 4 items. A10. If any temperature gauge reads below 37 degrees or above 44 degrees and manual adjustment fails, follow Rule A5 immediately. Do not wait to see if the temperature stabilizes. A11. If you hear sounds from inside the equipment room after sealing it, do not unseal the door. The sounds may include knocking, scraping, voices, or mechanical noises not consistent with normal equipment operation. Note the time and type of sound in your log. Radio Day Supervisor on Channel 6 to report, but do not attempt to investigate. A12. The old storage area on the service level is now off limits unless explicitly instructed by Day Supervisor. The door will be locked with a red tag. If you find the door unlocked or the tag removed, do not enter. Lock the door if possible. Radio Day Supervisor on Channel 4. A13. If the main gallery lights fail completely during a round, exit immediately using your flashlight. Do not attempt to restore power. Wait in the break room. Radio Day Supervisor on Channel 4. If dispatch does not respond within 10 minutes, proceed to the north emergency exit and wait outside until Day Supervisor arrives. The equipment room is clear now, Bridget said. Temperatures are stable. We replaced the heater coils in clusters B and C. You can resume normal rounds tonight. That night was quiet. I followed the updated protocols precisely. At midnight, I checked the equipment room. All gauges were in the acceptable range. At 0200, I used the break room bathroom. At 0400, I entered the gallery and saw the figure near tank 11. Do you need directions? I asked. The figure turned. Same brown jacket, same shadowed face. No, he said. I'm just looking. I continued my round. The figure did not move. When I passed tank 11 on my return circuit, he was gone. Gary came back the following week. He looked better, less shaken. We overlapped one evening during shift change. You handled the equipment room thing, he said. Bridget told me. That was smart, sealing it fast. Rule A5. Yeah, always the rules. He adjusted his radio. You notice how the rules keep getting longer? When I started here 8 months ago, the original list had 12 items. Now it's 14 plus 13 amendments. They keep adding them because people keep finding new ways to mess up. Or the place keeps finding new ways to test us. Which do you think it is? Gary smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Both. I worked through November. The temperature dropped outside, snow fell intermittently, and the access road became treacherous above 6,500 feet. Bridget arranged for supply deliveries every 2 weeks. Food, salt, batteries, test kits. The counts were precise. She logged every item. On a night in late November, I had my first prolonged incident. At 2200 hours, I began my round. Tank 17 had 1 fish. The north window had no condensation yet. I continued clockwise. At tank 19, I heard a sound behind me. I turned. A child stood near the entrance to the gallery. A girl, maybe 8 years old, wearing a blue coat. Her hair was dark and wet. She looked at me without expression. Do you need directions? I asked. She did not respond. 5 seconds passed. I turned off my flashlight. I counted to 20. I turned the flashlight back on. She was still there, closer now, standing beside tank 15. Her coat dripped water onto the concrete floor. I exited the gallery and locked the door from the outside. I radioed Bridget on Channel 4. Day supervisor, Rule 12 situation, figure did not respond, locked out of gallery. Understood. Stay in your quarters, I'm on my way. I waited. At 00:15, Bridget arrived. She unlocked the gallery and entered alone. I heard her footsteps, the sound of switches being flipped. After 5 minutes, she returned to the corridor. It's clear, she said. But there's water on the floor near tank 15, a lot of it, like someone stood there dripping for several minutes. Who was she? No one, or no one anymore. Bridget's face was hard. 3 years ago, a girl drowned in the spring outlet during a flash flood. Her body was found 2 miles downstream. Since then, we see her sometimes. Always at night. Always dripping. She looked at me. You followed the protocol. That's what matters. What would have happened if I hadn't? I don't know. No one stayed in the gallery with her long enough to find out. She handed me a rag. Clean up the water. Finish your rounds. If she appears again, same procedure. I cleaned the water. It was cold and smelled faintly of minerals. I completed my rounds without further incident. At 0300, I radioed dispatch. At 0400, I checked the gallery. Empty. At 0530, I checked the exterior doors. All locked. December brought heavier snow. The access road required chains. Bridget began staying overnight in the office twice a week, sleeping on a cot to avoid the drive during storms. On those nights, she monitored Channel 6 and responded to my reports in person. On December 10th, I met the new relief keeper. Her name was Mari. She was in her 30s with short black hair and steady hands. Bridget trained her during the day while I slept. When I woke, Mari was in the break room reading the operations manual. You've been here 2 months, she said. Bridget says you're solid. Any advice? Follow the list exactly. Don't improvise. Don't test the rules to see what happens. If something seems wrong, it is. What's the worst thing you've seen? I thought about the figure who waited, the girl dripping water, the second fish in tank 17. The worst thing is not knowing what happens if continue 4:32 p.m. you break the rules. That uncertainty is worse than anything I've actually seen. Mari nodded. That makes sense. She took her first solo shift on December 12th. I had the night off. I spent it in my quarters reading and sleeping. At 0700, I saw Mari in the break room. She looked tired but calm. Footsteps circled twice, she said. Tank 7 tapped. I stayed back. Everything else was normal. You did well. Bridget said you had a figure appear twice, the man and the girl. Yes. Did you feel scared? I considered the question. No, I felt focused, like I was solving a problem. The fear comes later when you have time to think about it. Mari poured coffee. I can work with that. On December 15th, we had a blackout. I was in the office at 2300 hours when the lights cut out. The filtration systems went silent. Emergency exit signs glowed faintly. I grabbed my flashlight and radioed Bridget on Channel 4. Day supervisor, power failure, all systems down. Her voice came back immediately. Backup generators should engage in 90 seconds. If they don't, follow emergency protocol. I'm coming in. I waited. 60 seconds, 70, 80, 90. The generators did not engage. Bridget had given me the emergency protocol card 2 weeks earlier. I pulled it from my pocket and read by flashlight. Cold-water aquarium. Emergency protocols E1. In the event of total power failure lasting more than 2 minutes, proceed to the equipment room. Manually engage the backup generator using the red lever on the north wall. The generator will provide power for 6 hours. Monitor the fuel gauge. If fuel drops below 1/4, radio day supervisor on channel 4, E2. During power failure, do not enter the main gallery unless absolutely necessary. If you must enter, use only your flashlight. Do not use the panel lights. Complete your task and exit immediately. E3. If the backup generator fails to engage after 3 attempts, seal yourself in the break room. Use the battery-powered radio to maintain contact with day supervisor. Do not leave the break room until power is restored or day supervisor arrives. E4. During extended power loss, more than 2 hours, tank temperatures will drop at a rate of approximately 1 degree per hour. If you must check temperatures, use the manual gauge in the equipment room. Do not attempt to adjust temperatures without power to the heating system. E5. If you hear sounds from the tanks during a blackout, do not investigate. Water movement may create unusual acoustic effects. Only investigate if you hear glass breaking, which indicates a structural failure requiring immediate response. I went to the equipment room. The red lever was mounted on the north wall beside a metal panel. I pulled it down. The generator coughed once, then caught. Lights flickered and came back on. The filtration systems hummed back to life. I checked the fuel gauge, 3/4 full. I radioed Bridget. Day supervisor, backup generator engaged. Fuel at 75%. Good, I'm 15 minutes out. Monitor fuel. If it drops below half, radio me. I stayed in the equipment room watching the gauges. All tanks were holding at 41 degrees. Pressure was stable. At 23:35, Bridget arrived. She checked the main power panel in the hallway. Breaker tripped, she said. Happens sometimes when snow loads the transformer. I'll reset it. She flipped the breaker. The main power returned. The generator disengaged automatically. You did exactly right. Keep monitoring through the night. If it trips again, same procedure. The power held. I completed my rounds at midnight, 0200 and 0400 without incident. At dawn, I logged the event. Power failure at 2300. Emergency protocol followed, no further issues. On December 20th, Gary had his second incident. I was off shift, sleeping in my quarters, when I heard shouting. I woke and checked the time, 1400 hours. I opened my door. Gary was in the corridor, pale and breathing hard. Bridget stood beside him. What happened? I asked. Gary shook his head. I went down to the service level. I know we're not supposed to, but I heard something, like someone calling for help. I thought maybe someone was hurt. Bridget's expression was stone. And? I got halfway down the stairs. The lights were off. I used my flashlight. I saw the door to old storage. It was open. The red tag was on the floor. He paused. I saw inside just for a second. There was someone in there, or something. It was standing between the bins. It turned to look at me. I ran. Did it follow you? Bridget asked. I don't know. I didn't look back. I locked the service level door at the top of the stairs. Bridget turned to me. You're on tonight. New amendment. Rule A12 is now absolute. No one enters the service level under any circumstances. The door stays locked. I don't care what you hear. You do not go down there. She looked at Gary. You're suspended for 1 week. No pay. When you come back, you follow the list or you're done here. Gary nodded and left. Bridget pulled out a steel padlock and walked to the service level door. She locked it and pocketed the key. "You ever hear something calling for help?" she said. "You remember that nothing down there needs help. Nothing down there is human." That night I heard the voice. At 0100 hours I was in my quarters when I heard it. A man's voice, faint, coming from below. "Help, please, I'm stuck." I checked the rules. Rule 7. Do not enter the service level between 2100 hours and 0600 hours. Amended by A12, the old storage area is off limits unless explicitly instructed. Bridget's words, "You do not go down there." The voice continued. "Please, it's cold. I can't get out." I turned on the radio. I did not transmit. I simply held it, a reminder that help was available if I needed it. The voice called 3 more times, then stopped. I waited. Silence. I completed my round at 0200 without incident. At dawn, I told Bridget about the voice. "Same thing Gary heard," she said. "It wants you to open that door. It wants you to come down. You don't go down there, not for voices, not for anything." She made a note in her log. "I'm adding another amendment." The new amendment came that evening. A14. If you hear voices calling for help from the service level or from any sealed area, ignore them. These are not people. Do not respond. Do not investigate. If the voice identifies itself by name as someone you know, ignore it. The voice is not that person. Christmas came. Bridget brought a small plastic tree and set it up in the break room. She also delivered a bonus, an extra $500. "Hazard pay," she said. "You've earned it." I called my brother on Christmas Eve. He was doing better. The bills were nearly paid off. He asked what I was doing for Christmas. I told him I was working. He asked if it was lonely. I said no, it was quiet, and quiet was good. That night, Tank 17 showed 2 fish at midnight. I turned off the lights, waited 5 minutes, turned them back on. 1 fish. At 0200, I heard the footsteps circle 3 times. I moved to the break room and waited. At 0400, I completed my final round. The gallery was empty. On December 30th, we had our first prolonged siege. At 2200 hours, I began my round. As I entered the gallery, all the lights flickered. They did not go out, but they dimmed to half brightness. I continued clockwise. At tank 9, the lights flickered again. I heard a sound behind me, footsteps, but not the circling kind. These were erratic, moving from one side of the gallery to the other. I turned. The girl in the blue coat stood near tank 4. Water dripped from her hair. Behind her, near tank 11, the man in the brown jacket stood motionless. Between them, closer to me, was something else. A figure, but wrong. Its proportions were off, limbs too long, head tilted at an angle that necks do not tilt. It wore what might have been clothes, but the fabric did not move correctly. "Do you need directions?" I asked. My voice was steady. None of them responded. I turned off my flashlight. I counted to 20. I turned the flashlight back on. All 3 figures had moved closer. The girl was at tank 7, the man at tank 9, the wrong figure at tank 12. They formed a loose triangle around me. I walked toward the entrance, not running, not turning my back fully. I kept them in my peripheral vision. When I reached the door, I exited and locked it from the outside. I radioed Bridget on channel 4. "Day supervisor, rule 12 situation, 3 figures, non-responsive, locked out of gallery." 3? At once? Her voice was sharp. "Yes. I'm coming in. Do not re-enter the gallery. Stay in the break room. Keep the door closed." I went to the break room and locked the door. I set the radio on the table and waited. At 00:52, Bridget arrived. I heard her footsteps in the corridor, then her voice on the radio. "I'm entering the gallery. Stay where you are." I waited. 5 minutes. 10. 15. At 01:12, Bridget knocked on the break room door. I opened it. She looked exhausted. "They're gone, all three, but the water is everywhere. Pools of it near tanks 4, 7, 9, and 12, and something else. Scratches on the floor near tank 12, long ones like something dragged itself. What were they? I don't know. I've never seen three at once before, and I've never seen that third figure, the wrong one." She rubbed her face. "We're closing the gallery for tonight. You'll monitor from the office. I'll stay here until dawn. Tomorrow we add a new protocol." I spent the rest of the night in the office, monitoring the radio and checking the equipment room every 2 hours. Bridget stayed in the break room, door locked. At dawn, she called me in. "New rule," she said. "If you ever see more than 2 figures at once, you do not engage. You lock the gallery immediately and radio me on channel 4. You do not attempt the standard protocol. You just get out." She wrote the amendment on a card and handed it to me. A15. If more than 2 figures appear in the main gallery simultaneously, exit immediately without attempting Rule 12 protocol. Lock the door from outside. Radio day supervisor on channel 4. Do not re-enter until day supervisor arrives and clears the space. "This is escalating," she said. "I don't know why. Maybe it's the season, maybe it's something else, but you need to be more careful, all of you." She looked at me. "You've been here 3 months. You've handled everything correctly. Don't get complacent now." I worked New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Both nights were quiet. Tank 17 showed 1 fish. The footsteps circled twice. No figures appeared. On January 2nd, Mari took the night shift. On January 3rd, Gary returned from suspension. We overlapped briefly in the evening. "Bridget told me about the 3 figures," he said. "That's bad." We followed protocol. It worked. This time, he checked his watch. "You ever think about quitting?" "No." "Why not?" I thought about my brother, the bills, the money I was sending every month. "Because I need the job and because the rules work. As long as I follow them, I'm safe." "You really believe that?" "Yes." Gary nodded slowly. "I used to believe that. After the service level thing, I'm not sure anymore, but I need the money too, so I keep coming back." On January 7th, I had another equipment failure. This one was worse. At midnight, I checked the equipment room. Gauge 7, which monitored tank cluster D, was dropping fast. 41 degrees, 40, 39, 38. I attempted manual adjustment. The temperature continued to fall. 37, 36. I pulled out the magnetic strip and sealed the door. I radioed Bridget on channel 4. "Day supervisor, Rule A5 situation, gauge 7, temperature dropping below threshold. Equipment room sealed. I'm coming in. Do not unseal the door for any reason." I waited in the office. At 00:33, I heard sounds from the equipment room. Knocking, then scraping, then a voice muffled through the door. "Let me out, please, it's cold." I did not unseal the door. I noted the time and type of sounds in my log as instructed by Rule A11. Bridget arrived at 00:55. She examined the sealed door and listened. The sounds had stopped. She used her thermal reader. "Temperature inside is 32 degrees, she said. Freezing point. That's never happened before. She looked at me. You're off shift for the rest of the night. I'm bringing in a repair crew during the day. This is beyond standard maintenance. The repair crew arrived at 0900. I watched from my quarters as 4 technicians in heavy coats carried equipment into the building. They unsealed the equipment room and worked for 6 hours. At 1500, Bridget knocked on my door. It's fixed, she said, or as fixed as it's going to be. The heating coil in cluster D had crystallized, covered in ice from the inside. We've never seen that before. We replaced the whole unit. She handed me a new amendment card. A16. If you hear voices from the equipment room after sealing it per Rule A5, do not respond. Note the time and content of the voice in your log. If the voice claims to be a crew member or supervisor, verify by radio before unsealing. If radio verification fails or the voice becomes aggressive, remain in the office until day supervisor arrives. That night I resumed my shifts. Everything was quiet for 2 weeks. Gary and Mari took their usual rotations. We settled into the rhythm. The rules had grown to 14 original items and 16 amendments. We followed them precisely. On January 22nd, I found the toolbox on the floor. At midnight, I entered the equipment room to check gauges. The red toolbox, which was normally on the second shelf, was on the floor near the door. It was closed. I picked it up carefully and returned it to the second shelf without opening it. I completed my check and exited. At 0200, I returned for my next check. The toolbox was on the floor again, this time in the center of the room. Still closed. I returned it to the shelf. At 0400, I entered the equipment room. The toolbox was on the floor. This time it was open. Tools were scattered around it, wrenches, screwdrivers, pliers. I left the room immediately and radioed Bridget on Channel 4. Day supervisor, Rule A4 situation, toolbox open, exiting equipment room. Do not re-enter, I'm on my way. She arrived at 0441. She entered the equipment room alone. I heard the sound of tools being gathered. After 10 minutes, she emerged. It's secured, she said, but the tools were arranged in a pattern, a circle with the largest wrench in the center. Someone or something is trying to communicate, or trying to mess with you. She locked the equipment room door with a key. For tonight, skip your equipment checks. I'll monitor remotely. If there's a problem, I'll radio you. The rest of the night was quiet. At dawn, Bridget unlocked the equipment room. The toolbox was on the second shelf, closed. The tools were inside. New protocol, she said. If the toolbox appears on the floor more than once in a single shift, lock the equipment room and radio me. Don't keep returning it. That just encourages whatever's doing it. She added the protocol as a sub-note to Rule A4 in my manual. February brought warmer weather and rain. The snow melted rapidly. The access road became muddy but passable. Bridget reduced her overnight stays to once per week. Supply deliveries continued on schedule. On February 14th, Mari had an incident with the microwave. She was in the break room at 0030 when the microwave turned on by itself. She followed Rule 11, did not open it while running, waited 30 seconds after it stopped. When she opened it, there was something inside. She described it to me the next evening as we overlapped shifts. It looked like a fish, she said, but wrong. Too many fins. Eyes on the wrong side of its head. It was dead but still wet, like it had just come out of water. She shuddered. I didn't touch it. I closed the microwave and radioed Bridget on channel 6. What did she say? She told me to leave it closed until she arrived. When she got there at dawn, the microwave was empty. No fish, no water, just empty. Mari looked at her hands. She said it's happened before. Years ago, something from the tanks getting into places it shouldn't be. She said as long as I followed Rule 11, I was safe. And you believe that? I have to. On February 20th, I completed my 100th night shift. Bridget acknowledged it with a brief nod and a note in the log. You're the longest-running night keeper in 2 years, she said. Keep it up. That night, Tank 17 showed 2 fish at midnight. The lights-off procedure worked on the first attempt. At 0100, the footsteps circled twice. At 0400, I heard tapping from Tank 7. I stayed back. At 0530, I checked the exterior doors. All locked. At dawn, Bridget met me in the office. She looked at my log, then at me. You're becoming efficient, she said. Rounds in 15 minutes. Procedures executed without hesitation. That's good. But don't let efficiency become complacency. This place punishes assumptions. Understood. Good. She closed the log. I'm interviewing a new day assistant next week. Someone to help with inventory and maintenance. You won't interact much, but they'll be here during transition hours, just so you know. The new assistant started on March 1st. His name was Joel. He was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and a methodical way of moving. I saw him twice during shift transitions. He nodded politely but did not engage in conversation. Bridget said he was former military, used to following protocols without question. On March 7th, we had a storm. The forecast called for heavy snow and high winds starting at 2200 hours. Bridget stayed overnight, sleeping in the office. She briefed me at 2000 hours. The storm is going to knock out power, she said. Maybe multiple times. Follow emergency protocols. Backup generator is fueled and ready. I'll monitor from here. If anything feels wrong, radio me immediately. The storm hit at 22:30. Wind howled around the building. Snow fell heavily. At 2300 hours, the power cut out. I went to the equipment room and engaged the backup generator. It caught on the first pull. At midnight, I began my round. The gallery was dimly lit by emergency power. Tank 17 had 1 fish. I continued clockwise. At Tank 9, I heard a sound over the storm, tapping on the north observation window, not from inside a tank, from outside. I approached carefully. The window was dark. I could see snow swirling in the beam of my flashlight. The tapping continued. Rhythmic, deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. Rule 1. Do not look through the north window while wiping. Amended by A1. If you see a figure outside while wiping, continue wiping. Do not stop. Do not make eye contact. But I was not wiping. I was simply hearing tapping. The rules did not cover this scenario. I radioed Bridget on channel 6. Day supervisor, anomalous sound. Tapping on north observation window from outside. No applicable rule. Requesting guidance. Her response came immediately. Do not approach the window. Do not investigate. Complete your round and return to the office. I finished my round without approaching the window again. The tapping stopped at 0012. I returned to the office. Bridget was at the desk, radio in hand. That's new, she said. We've never had external tapping during a storm. I'm adding it to the amendments. For now, if you hear it again, ignore it. The window is sealed. Nothing can get through. The power cut out 2 more times that night. Each time I engaged the backup generator. The tapping did not return. At dawn, the storm had passed. The access road was buried under 14 inches of snow. Joel arrived at 0800 on a snowmobile. He helped Bridget clear the entrance and check the exterior. At 1400 hours, Bridget gave me the new amendment, A17. If you hear tapping on the north observation window from outside during a storm or high wind event, do not approach the window. Do not investigate. Complete your round and report to Day Supervisor on Channel 6. The window is structurally sound. External tapping is not a breach risk, but indicates heightened activity that should be logged. March continued with cold nights and variable weather. The rules now numbered 31 items total, 14 original, 17 amendments. I had them memorized. Gary and Mari had their own copies, each laminated and worn from handling. On March 22nd, Gary quit. He came to me during a shift transition, pale and shaking. "I'm done," he said. "I can't do this anymore. Last night I saw something in the service level. The door was locked, but I saw it through the gap at the bottom. Something moving, something that didn't have legs but moved anyway." He took off his radio and set it on the table. "I'm leaving today. I don't care about the pay. I don't care about the reference. I just need to get out of here." Bridget did not try to stop him. She processed his exit paperwork and drove him down the mountain that afternoon. When she returned, she looked tired. "We need a new relief keeper," she said. "I'll start interviews next week. Until then, you and Mari will split the extra shifts. Can you handle 4 nights per week?" "Yes." "Good. I'm also adding a new rule. After what Gary saw, we need to be explicit. A18. If you see movement under the service level door, do not investigate. Do not attempt to open the door. Note the time and description in your log. Radio Day Supervisor on Channel 6. The service level door is sealed and locked. What is seen under the door cannot exit." On April 3rd, the new relief keeper started. Her name was Keisha. She was in her 40s, calm and competent. Bridget trained her for a week before her first solo shift. On April 10th, I overlapped with her during shift change. "You've been here 5 months, she said. "Bridget says you're the most reliable keeper she's had. What's your secret?" "There's no secret. You follow the list. You don't test it. You don't assume you know better. You just follow it." "And that's enough?" "It has been so far." Keisha nodded. "I can work with that." On April 15th, I had my final incident. At midnight, I entered the gallery for my round. As I passed tank 17, I saw 2 fish. I turned off the lights, waited 5 minutes, turned them back on. Still 2 fish. I repeated the procedure. Still 2 fish. Rule A2. If tank 17 shows 2 fish and the lights off procedure does not resolve it after 2 attempts, do not enter the gallery again until Day Supervisor arrives. I exited the gallery and locked the door. I radioed Bridget on Channel 4. "Day Supervisor, Rule A2 situation. Tank 17, 2 fish, procedure failed after 2 attempts. Locked out of gallery, waiting in quarters." "Understood. I'm coming in. Do not re-enter the gallery under any circumstances." I waited. At 00:55, Bridget arrived. She entered the gallery alone. I heard nothing for 20 minutes. At 01:16, she emerged. "It's resolved," she said. "There's only 1 fish now, but there was something else in the tank. A second shape, almost like a fish, but translucent. I netted it out. It dissolved in the air. She locked the gallery door. "You're off shift for tonight. I'll monitor. This is beyond standard protocol. I need to call the board." The board consisted of 3 people, a biologist, an engineer, and a local official who managed the facility's funding. Bridget spoke with them by phone the next morning. I did not hear the conversation, but at 1400 hours she called me to the office. "The board is considering a temporary closure," she said. "The incidents are increasing in frequency and severity. They want to bring in specialists to assess the spring water and the tank systems. That means shutting down for at least 2 weeks. She looked at me. "You'll still get paid, but there won't be night shifts during the closure. You can take the time off or help with day work. Your choice." "I'll help with day work." "Good." She handed me a schedule. "We start the assessment on May 1st. Until then, continue normal shifts. Follow the rules. Report everything." On April 30th, I completed my final night shift before the closure. Tank 17 had 1 fish. The footsteps circled twice. No figures appeared. At 0530, I checked the exterior doors, all locked. At 0600, I unlocked the main entrance and waited for dawn. Bridget arrived at 0645. She reviewed my log, nodded, and closed it. "You've done well," she said. 5 months, 0 violations, every incident handled correctly. When we reopen, you'll have first choice of shifts. You've earned it." The assessment began on May 1st. A team of 4 specialists arrived with testing equipment and sampling kits. They worked 12-hour days, analyzing water chemistry, tank conditions, and structural integrity. I assisted with basic tasks, moving equipment, logging data, maintaining supply counts. On May 7th, one of the specialists, a woman named Dr. Larkin, asked me about the night shifts. "Bridget mentioned you're the primary night keeper," she said. "Have you noticed any patterns in the anomalies? Times when they're more frequent or conditions that trigger them?" I considered how much to share. "They're more frequent during storms, and certain tanks seem more active than others. Tank 17, Tank 7, Tank 11. Those are all fed directly by the spring," she said. "The water chemistry in those tanks is slightly different. Higher mineral content, lower pH. We think something in the spring is causing the phenomena." "What kind of something?" "We don't know yet. It could be geological, it could be biological, or it could be something we don't have a framework to understand." She looked at me carefully. "Bridget also mentioned the rules, the very specific rules. Has anyone ever explained why they work?" "No." "Does that bother you?" "No. They work. That's enough." Dr. Larkin nodded slowly. "That's a pragmatic approach. But if you ever want to understand why, the data we're collecting might provide answers, or at least better questions." The assessment concluded on May 14th. The specialists packed their equipment and departed. On May 15th, Bridget called a meeting with all staff. Me, Mari, Keisha, Joel. "The board reviewed the assessment results," she said. "The facility is structurally sound. The water quality is within acceptable ranges for the species we house. But there are anomalies in the spring water that we can't fully explain. Trace elements that shouldn't exist at this altitude. Temperature fluctuations that don't match any known geological patterns." She paused. "The board voted to reopen, but the rules stay in place, and we're adding 3 more. She handed out new amendment cards. A19. During assessment or maintenance periods when specialists are on site, Night keepers will follow all original and amended rules without exception. Do not share details of anomalous events with specialists unless explicitly instructed by day supervisor. Observations should be logged internally. A20. If water samples are taken from tanks during night shifts, do not observe the collection process for longer than 30 seconds. Note the time and tank number. Complete your round as scheduled. Sample analysis will be conducted during day shifts. A21. In the event of a facility closure lasting more than 1 week, night keepers returning to duty will conduct a full inventory check on their first shift. All tanks, all equipment, all seals. Report any discrepancies to day supervisor immediately. Do not attempt to correct discrepancies without explicit instruction. We reopen on May 20th, Bridget said. You'll all resume your normal rotations. The rules now total 34 items. Memorize the new amendments before your next shift. On May 20th at 2100 hours, I locked the main entrance door and began my first shift after the closure. I conducted the full inventory check as instructed. 22 tanks, all species accounted for. Equipment room, all gauges stable. Seals on all restricted areas intact. I logged the results. At 2200 hours, I began my round. Tank 17 had 1 fish. The north window had condensation. I wiped it without looking outside. At midnight, I completed my second round. At 0200, my third. At 0400, my fourth. At 0530, I checked the exterior doors. All locked. At 0600 hours, I unlocked the main entrance. The sky was pale blue, the air was cool and still. I stood in the doorway for a moment, breathing, listening to the sound of water moving through the building behind me. Bridget arrived at 0645. I handed her the log. She read it carefully. Clean shift, she said. No incidents. That's good. The facility feels different after the assessment. Quieter. Maybe the disturbance during the closure reset something. She looked at me. Or maybe it's just waiting. Waiting for what? I don't know. But we'll keep following the rules. That's all we can do. I returned to my quarters and slept through the day. When I woke at 1500 hours, I walked the perimeter of the building outside. The spring water flowed clear and cold from the outlet. The trees were green with new growth. The mountain was silent except for the wind. That night, I prepared my quarters for the next keeper. I organized the rules into a binder, the original list, the 17 amendments, the 3 emergency protocols. I wrote a brief note on the first page. These rules work. Follow them exactly. Do not test them. Do not improvise. If something happens that is not covered, radio day supervisor and wait for instructions. You will be safe if you follow the list. At 2100 hours, I locked the main entrance. At 2200 hours, I began my round. Tank 17 had 1 fish. At midnight, 1 fish. At 0200, 1 fish. At 0400, 1 fish. At 0530, I checked the exterior doors, all locked. At 0600 hours, Bridget arrived with the new night keeper. His name was Thomas. He was young, maybe 23, with nervous energy and too many questions. Bridget handed him the binder. Read this today, she said. Memorize it. Your first solo shift is tomorrow night. Any questions, ask me now. Once you're on night shift, you follow the list, no exceptions. Thomas opened the binder and read the first rule, then the second, then the third. His expression shifted from curiosity to uncertainty to something like fear. These are very specific, he said. Yes, Bridget said. What happens if I don't follow them? I spoke before Bridget could answer. You'll find out, and you won't like it, so follow them. Thomas looked at me. You've been here 6 months. You followed all of these? Yes. And you're okay? I thought about the figures, the footsteps, the tapping, the voices, the cold, the wrong shapes, the dissolved fish, the patterns I had learned. I thought about my brother, the bills, the money I had sent, the quiet nights and the loud nights and the nights when I had been certain something was about to go very wrong but had followed the rules and survived. I'm okay, I said, and you will be too, if you follow the list. Thomas nodded slowly. He closed the binder and held it against his chest. Bridget led him to his quarters. I remained in the office, looking at my final log entry. Night keeper, cold water, all clear. I gathered my belongings. I walked to my car in the gravel lot. The sun was rising over the ridge, casting long shadows across the building. I started the engine and drove down the access road, past the reflective markers every 30 yards. Through the switchbacks, through the trees, down the mountain. Behind me, the cold water aquarium settled into the day shift. The tanks hummed, the water flowed. The rules waited in their binder for the next keeper to read and follow and survive. I did not look back.